I'm Judy Gelman Myers with New Jewish Cinema for Shalom TV. Today, I'm interviewing Eve Annenberg, director of a fabulous film called Romeo and Juliet in Yiddish.
Yiddish? The world's most irrelevant language? The dictionary for Yiddish is 8 volumes long.
Lisa, do you ever dream? Kabbalitis. I studied too much Kabbalah, and now I'm leaking. Magic. I'm a little worried about it. These worlds intersect with each other. I can make them intersect.
There's a very real possibility that she's already married and starting a family of her own.
You want to negotiate Shakespeare?
Looking for my mother?
How about a popular language like Dutch?
Hi, Eve.
Hi, Judy.
How are you?
Good, thanks for having me.
So the film is about a master's student who's required to translate Romeo and Juliet into Yiddish. She can't do it herself, so she seeks the help of some kids who have dropped out of the New York Hasidic community, and together they manage to do the translation of the play. That's the spine of the story, but how would you put the film into your own words?
The film is a little bit of a love song to Yiddish in general. I found that after my grandmother and my mother were no longer with us, I didn't hear Yiddish in the kitchen anymore. And because I'm not an ultra-Orthodox Jew living in Brooklyn or Belgium or Israel, I just didn't get to hear it. And when I did, it was so exhilarating that I thought it would be great to put a lot of Yiddish into a movie and have that be available to people like me who had a little bit of Weltanschmerz for Yiddish in general.
That's wonderful. That's great. The film was actually a collaborative effort between you and your actors. Can you talk about how the group developed the script together?
It wasn't a full-on collaboration like a Mike Leigh film. It didn't have improvisation. It's really scripted down to the letter. Where the collaboration came in was, as we were translating together, I would ask a couple of guys who were doing it with me about their lives. And the things that they told me were so jaw-dropping that I just co-opted elements of their lives into the actual story. And, you know, I told them that, of course. I'm very set on giving credit where credit is due, that some of the details of how they were living are true. So I used them.
Can you give us some of the...
Well, Laser and Mendy were in their high school years and their what should have been their late high school years. They were living in a van in Williamsburg, Brooklyn on the street for a year.
After they had dropped out of the Hasidic community.
A U-Haul.
Hey, wieso ist es gegangen?
Fein, wir schicken einen Check in 3 Wochen.
Was, das Geld? Ja, in 3 Wochen.
Shit, jetzt hat man nicht kein Geld. Wie sollte man ausführen für Stutt? Hat man kein Geld. Trinken, essen, jetzt hat man nicht gut.
So you came up with the idea of Romeo and Juliet in Yiddish.
I did.
And how did that come about?
Well, let me see. I was going to Cholent.
Right.
And the Orthodox look was never something that I would have thought was, you know, sexy. Yeah. Yeah. But after a year or two of Cholent, one night somebody walked in the door and he was a young guy in full ultra-Orthodox regalia.
With the stremmel and
everything, white socks, the whole nine, the glasses. And someone standing next to me said, "Oh my God, he's so hot." And I looked at this kid and I thought, you know, he is hot. And I thought, if my brain has now made that leap, that I could show other people that also. Like I could be a publicist, if you will, and just take something that people think of as in the outside world, the secular world, kind of a dorky look, and go from dorky to Deadwood in 90 minutes. And I think we did that. Because really, these guys are gorgeous. They're just beautiful.
Yeah,
I used to tease them and say you're inbred to perfection, but they are so handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the faces were beautiful.
And the clothing is so, it's almost, well, it's out of the 1500s or the 1600s, and that was contemporaneous with Shakespeare. And Shakespeare I do know a lot about. And people think Shakespearean clothing is interesting. So somehow the connection between their heavy woolen garb and Shakespeare was made in my head. And from there it was a very short leap to Romeo and Juliet in Yiddish.
Interesting. But I think it's important for people to realize that you're not really doing a film about the Hasidic community the way Rama Borstein did with Fill the Void. You're really doing a film about people who have dropped out of the community.
I'm really doing a film about 6 people. I'm not an expert on the Hasidic community. You know, I'm a fan of certain aspects of the Hasidic community. I'm interested in it. I'm concerned about the huge rift between the secular community and the Hasidic community. But I am not the biggest expert, nor do I purport to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really about the ability to create new family and to heal between families. The ultra-Orthodox are one family, really, and the secular are another family. And there's this tremendous and unproductive divide. And so for me, it's more about rapprochement between what is rather than reinventing another strain, or, you know, we're able to pull liberally from so many philosophies that I think it's a shame that we don't share more. There's so many things that go on in the ultra-Orthodox canon that I'm not familiar with. And I can see where people don't really have the luxury to access things that would be of great interest and give us comfort and allow us to look for the parallels between different cultures. For me, it's really about togetherness in the present. And although I feel that I'm one of those people for whom the past is always with me, that wasn't my main focus here.
The film is very, very funny.
Thank you.
But there are some very disturbing elements in it. I especially found Romeo's relationship with his father very, very upsetting. Obviously, so did he. Can you talk about that aspect of the lives of the kids who drop out of the Hasidic community?
When we do Q&As at film festivals, people often get extremely personal with these young people and start asking them questions. Did your family disown you? And how religious are you? It's extremely odd, you know, and a little, it's hard for them, but everyone's situation is different. So whereas some people are not speaking to their families, other people's families stay behind them. And I think there's an ongoing argument, but there's so many ongoing arguments in secular families also.
Sure.
You know, like, are you really wearing that again? Are you dating that person? I mean, it's to be expected. Mm-hmm. They get a lot of, it's more than pushback. But I didn't really know anyone whose family had said Kaddish for them personally. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the film being difficult in other areas, I think that, you know, I always think Jewish people are up for a challenge. They're up for an intellectual challenge. They're up for looking at the facts. And I think that, you know, Jewish cinema, if it's going to be hagiography, it's not going to move us forward, you know. So I'm not concerned. You know, kids do drugs. It's not great, but we're going to pretend they don't do it, that
Right.
Jewish kids don't do it, that Orthodox kids don't, you know, haven't experimented. I'm sure lots of people don't do drugs, but these guys, these out Hasidim, it's an issue.
Drugs.
Drugs, yeah. I mean, I'm not, again, I'm just saying, calling it like I see it, you know, and not, we didn't soft pedal it, I guess. But I've had people look at the movie and say, well, that doesn't happen. And that's just not true.
Right.
You know, it really does happen.
Right. You first tried using an existing translation, but said that it wouldn't work because it was 1930s socialist Yiddish, quite highfalutin, academic, and faithful to the Shakespeare, which wouldn't jive with these kids' street Yiddish. Can you talk about, first of all, the kids' street Yiddish and the fact that they grew up speaking Yiddish as a first language in Brooklyn, and then about the 1930s Yiddish translation?
So, someone from Cholent told me that there was a translation extant at YIVO, and he came with me to YIVO and helped me check that out. And then a young man named Ben Rubin helped me. I made my own version of Romeo and Juliet. I cut my own, and then he helped me locate those exact lines in that Goldberg translation. Very exciting. Thought I had it all done. Took it to these guys, and they were like, we can't even understand this Yiddish.
Oh, interesting.
And these are guys who are speaking, you know, it's a living language, it's evolved.
Right.
Plus their Yiddish was, you know, Satmar, Hungarian, it's a little more Germany sounding, I think. The references they couldn't get, and the arcane Yiddish didn't work for them. So we sat there and we redid every single line together. I would explain to them the meaning of the English, and then they would bandy about various Yiddishes. So this was Moshe Pinter, Laser Weiss, Mendy Zaffer, Levi Keller, Aaron Keller. It was like a party at my house that went on for 6 weeks. And then I would pick the phrase I like the best based on familiarity. Me, who speaks the least Yiddish in the room, I would be like, but I know that word, so
Right.
let's go with that line. So it was sort of like, you know, it could have been my dissertation if I was getting a master's, you know, PhD.
Right.
And this brought me into I had interesting conversations with the Yiddishists. So we sat and we translated into Yiddish they could understand. So we would read the English. I would explain the English. The English had concepts in it they couldn't relate to, like Phoebus, the sun god. Try explaining that to somebody who's been studying Torah since he was 3. The sun god. Not happening. Had to go. Fairies. Queen Mab. Kings and queens who are fairies. Not happening. So we redid the whole thing.
Dying for romantic love, I think you mentioned.
Romantic love. They were appalled at the idea that anyone would be killing anybody or killing themselves for romantic love. And that was great. And then they didn't know the story, you know. Of course, we all learn it at
Seventh
grade. Yeah.
6th grade,
Yeah.
7th grade.
And I would put them on the spot sometimes because I'd want them to go home and read the book, at least. So I would say, so you know the story? Oh, yeah, I know the story. What happens? They meet, they get married, they live happily ever after. I was like, no. No, somebody didn't do their homework, you know. It's hard, actually, to read Shakespeare in English when you're
very hard.
When you're English, you know, when you're not reading in English either.
Right.
So it was complicated. And then we would just take even greater liberties sometimes. If there was a Yiddish adage that I thought was funny and was funnier to to someone like me, I was the ultimate barometer, than the Shakespeare. We'd stick that in and then see if the audience would notice. You know, like the audience, most theater people know Romeo and Juliet inside out. So I think they got it sometimes when it would be an old Yiddish joke instead of the old Shakespearean joke. I would change the inflection sometimes in the English lines. There's something in the balcony scene. You know, it made it Yiddish. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you're going, of course, it's a Yiddish play. You know, it's funny, art works like that. It's universal.
Given all the complexity of the language, who's your audience?
People ask me that, and I say either no one or every Jew in the world, although it's been really popular with non-Jews, because they're able to come to the table and look at Hasidic people with much fewer preconceptions than secular Jews might have. Mm. So teenagers, of course, get into it no matter what. It's Romeo and Juliet is a teenage soap opera.
Sure.
And then we played it in Berlin, and there were people sitting in the audience who were 85, 87, and it was exhilarating for them. It was exhilarating to hear young people babbling away in Yiddish.
Wow.
And it's
These are German Jews?
I think they were. I mean, I didn't interview them per se, they were, but that's what it looked like to me. Mm-hmm. And that was very satisfying, obviously.
Sure.
It was just positive. There's nothing about that that's not positive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You make it, I mean, the kids sort of make a big deal about the division between sects. Now, I know that both Lays, the actors who played Romeo and Juliet, both came from Satmar families. Was there that kind of division among kids among the kids who were acting in the play?
Who knew? I had no idea there were even divisions. But actually, Laser came from a Bells community. I'd never heard of that.
I don't know, what is that?
And she came from Satmar. And then I had one Lubavitcher in the cast. And frankly, his Yiddish was more like the Yiddish that I knew. It was more sort of a Russian, Polish, Lithuanian Yiddish. And their Hungarian Yiddish was more German. So the movie has actually a more Germany sound than I was expecting. It was not my kitchen Yiddish. It's Montague's. Jesus, you guys don't know anything, do you?
Ava, why are they fighting?
You know? Nobody knows.
Because one of them is Satmar, and the other Chabad. Or worse, Zionists.
Are you saying that the Orthodox fight among themselves? Why would they do that?
You didn't know this? Gee, you don't know anything.
So there are, in fact,
divisions, yes.
And a number of Yiddish dialects even within the film?
Yes, mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some inconsistency in the Yiddish.
That's amazing.
And a lot of Yiddishists felt that it was not good Yiddish because it was not grammatically correct Yiddish.
It was street Yiddish.
Street Yiddish. So picture me in this argument with Yiddishists, you know, and finally I just said to them, think of it as Danny Boyle's Yiddish. You know, like, if you compare it to, you know, train spotting might not sound like English to you, but it was the English that was being spoken that year in that neighborhood.
Right.
And that's our Yiddish. It's the Yiddish that is being spoken on the streets the year the film was made.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Esoteric, right?
Yeah.
I know.
That's great.
There's a blockbuster for you. I keep telling everyone. As somebody said to me about the movie, who was very enthusiastic, and he said, well, it's not like it's going out of style.
And you speak Yiddish in the film. How's your Yiddish?
Terrible, awful. I studied one semester at YIVO, and so a lot of it I had to do phonetically, the stuff. And then, but after you work on a film and you see it thousands of times, so now I know a lot more.
Now, speaking of studying, you were working with people who have who had never even seen a film before.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So talk about the process of getting them to, of turning them into actors.
Well, what was great about them, one of the many things that's terrific about them, is their strength of belief. And they just went with it. They have a strong sense of play, actually, and they have these incredible memories, really incredible. Like, here's the story. Isaac Schoenfeld came to the Tahara Stiebel scene, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you want me to memorize these lines?" This is Shakespeare, okay? And the crew's standing there setting up. So I said, "Yes, Isaac, I really needed you to memorize the lines." He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, just give me a minute." And he goes out in the hall, goes over, these are monologues, and comes back, and he's got it. Can you imagine that?
And that's because of the rote learning that they...
I don't know. What is it because of?
I
You know,
don't know.
like, because of the huge amounts of things that they have to memorize. I
Right.
guess they would have homework would be like, memorize this book. So that was incredible to me. Then, you know, the acting Shakespeare is not that easy. So I went to Juilliard. I had a wonderful teacher there named Eve Shapiro. So when I finally got greenlit for the movie, there was a very small period of time between getting the budget and having to shoot. Because my cast is young, you can't keep their interest for that long. They're not, you know, they're not actors waiting in the wings, dying for a chance to do Shakespeare. They're like, all right, I'll do it if you really want me to. I have Tuesday free, you know? So I went to Eve Shapiro and I said, Eve, could you take them as a group and give them a little bit of Shakespeare 101? Can you just get them up to speed, even on the rehearsal process? I'll take it from there. I'll take it on the set, obviously, but I need help just getting everybody oriented. And they wound up having this wonderful experience of going to Eve Shapiro. Eve Shapiro has taught generations of Juilliard and the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and everyone from, you know, Michelle Pfeiffer to Alan Rickman. And even though they'd never seen movies with those people in them, they got to be part of this grand tradition.
Wow.
And
wow.
Yep. And then
that's really cool.
Yeah, I felt great about that. And then, you know, we had stunts. So you have a bunch of kids in their yeshiva. There's no gym class, apparently. So I got
no basketball team.
No basketball. So I got stuntmen, and the stuntmen would come in, and all of a sudden you have people who are, you know, grown up ostensibly, but they're playing for maybe the first time, sword fighting, you know, swashbuckling with staffs, fighting with staffs. How are we going to work this out? Bats, staffs, knives, and it was fun. It was fun for them. It was fun for me.
Oh, it definitely comes across in the film.
Yeah,
it's really, it's a fun film.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's fun. I know it was fun. It was fun to have fun with them.
So when you brought these kids on board, what were they doing in life?
Hard to say. You know, Mendy and Laser had a poster business, Push Gefühlen. That's how they advertise in the community. They still do a lot of poster boarding. But I think they thought they wanted to get into entertainment, and they knew I was trying to make this movie. And a friend of theirs called me and said, my friend wants to speak with you, and we had coffee, and they said, yeah, we want to do it. We want to do your movie. And they looked like Entourage, you know. They looked like Entourage. I was like, what the hell? Let's do it. Let's try it. You know, go ahead. Be producers on this, and let's see how that works out. And some of it worked out great.
The film is now available from Cinedigm on iTunes, Amazon Instant Video, Google Play, YouTube, and Vudu, and it's played at a number of film festivals. Can you talk about how it's been received?
It was received great. It premiered at Lincoln Center here. It was the second film programmed at the new-ish now Eleanor Bonin Monroe Theater. So that was great for a movie with this budget. to have a theatrical release, also in great part due to our fantastic distributor, Nancy Fishman. It seems to be getting around. We've been screened at Harvard, and it was a lot of the Orthodox community came out of the woodwork for this movie, and that made it very meaningful. At the London Jewish Film Festival, I don't think they'd ever seen an ultra-Orthodox turnout. The theaters are full. There's a little bit of controversy over, Romeo and Juliet. There's not a love scene exactly, but they wake up the next morning. Of course, they're married. So I've heard people arguing in the audiences, no, this is terrible, I'm walking out, and then I've heard the husband say, but they're married, so.
Oh, what a gorgeous scene.
Thank you. Yeah, and the music is Basia Schechter from Pharaoh's Daughter and other pretty well-known Jewish performers. I'm hoping we do justice to, young love and first love and all that. So I have a lot of hope that it will be part of the rubric of popular culture. I think there will be more Yiddish movies. I think the Coen brothers will use more Yiddish, and anything that, things that Michael Chabon has written and Scott Rudin produces. I mean, there's room for more Yiddish in the culture, and I think people value it, and they don't want it to go away, and that there'll be more of it. And I think Romeo and Juliet in Yiddish is one of the first to say, here's a feature film, fictional. It's not made for a limited audience, but yes, it's half in Yiddish.
Mm-hmm. That is a wonderful ambition. Eve, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure speaking with you. I'm Judy Gelman Myers for New Jewish Cinema for Shalom TV.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.